Hello, internet fans, and welcome to 3B Video. I'm your host, Rotten Roger DeMarco, and today we're going to be ranking the Scream franchise. Why? To see what your insides look like. We've been churning through these franchise rankings. I'm having a good time, but I do want to offer the disclaimer once again. If you're new here, the way that I rank these films is by the amount of fun that I have with them, not necessarily which film is the best from a filmmaking standpoint, from cinematography, yada yada. This is all about how much fun I have with each personal entry. And since this is a small franchise, I will not be ranking or adding in the TV series, seasons, and all of that stuff. That's a whole different video for a whole different time. But either way, let's get started. Coming in at number 4 is Scream 3. I've talked about this film a handful of times during some of our live streams and things like that. In my opinion, I feel like this is where the franchise sort of jumped the shark. It got a little bit silly, it got a little bit watered down, it got super self-referential with everything from the Jay and Silent Bob cameo to the movie within a movie within a movie, yada yada. The one plus for me in this movie is my man Patrick Warburton. Hey, Dewdrop. It's not a very good Patrick Warburton impression, but you get the point. He's big, he's funny, he's supposed to be tough. By this point in the franchise, we get a bunch of nonsensical things, like a voice changer that can emulate other people's voices. Also, spoiler alert, they do my man Cotton Weary a little bit dirty in this movie. There's just things about this film that don't stack up for me, and I don't watch it very frequently. Although I will say, the one scene where Sydney is having the nightmare of her mom walking across the yard and like scratching on the window, that's pure nightmare fuel. That has always bothered me. But aside from that, this movie just doesn't deliver the goods for me. We do get a nice little cameo with Randy, but other than that, the exposition and the execution and the killer reveal is all pretty weak sauce in my opinion, but it's just my opinion. But that's why it's number 4 on my list. So moving on, my number 3 ranked Scream film is Scream 2. And this is where things get hairy. This is where the internet goes, "What? How dare you? Scream 2 is a masterpiece." And I'm not gonna dispute that with you. I will just say that for me personally, Scream 1 did so well that it was inevitable that we were gonna get Scream 2, and so on and so forth. And Wes Craven, when he finished Scream 1, he did have like a 5-page treatment of where he would take the franchise. When this movie was in production, the script leaked online, so there was a lot of stuff with last-minute rewrites and all of this hullabaloo to keep the ending secret. As a result, I think that the internet actually killed this movie. Yes, there are things about this movie that work. There are things about this movie that are done very well. The main issue with these films is that once we get past the midpoint, there seems to be a lot of quick dot connecting to make the end reveal, "Ooh, gotcha." I like that they bring Cotton Weary back into the fold. He's almost a bad guy because he wants his 15 minutes of fame and he's a little unhinged, so they kind of force that at you, maybe point the finger and say, well, what if Cotton lost his shit and became the killer this go around? And then there's also the fact that Randy follows Sydney to college and that he's sort of this jilted, never was, never would be lover of Sidney Prescott, so there's that angle that he could possibly be the killer. But instead, we go the very standard route with Billy Loomis's mother and the film student, Timothy Olyphant. There's a lot of stuff about this movie that I like, but there is an equal amount of things that I dislike with this film. Get your Creed out of my slasher film. Either way, that's why it's my number 3 pick. So moving on to my number 2 is Scream 4. That's where the eyes roll. That's where people go, I can't believe you rank Scream 4 above Scream 2, because Scream 4 is a mess. And I'm not disputing that. Scream 4 is the equivalent of a dumpster fire for this franchise, but it's a very fun movie. It kind of ushers in this new era of horror fans where everything is online, Facebook, Twitter, yada yada, live streaming, the obsession that people have over real life murder and horror films, and also being famous. Even Sidney Prescott is guilty of it. You know, she's releasing a book, which is the same thing that she sort of shit all over Gale Weathers for doing in the previous installments. So now Sidney Prescott has kind of grown up and she's sort of becoming what she hated in the first two films. And I think that that's a very clever character arc. And I like seeing her grow as a person throughout these films. And we're brought in with the family aspect. Again, we've come full circle, and now Sidney's family is affected by this. It's not a great movie by any means, but it's very fun. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It does a lot of this meta false start shit, which can make you roll your eyes. That is the worst part about the film for me, is the opener. It's very much a parody of the Scream films. But, I mean, you get Anthony Anderson. I really like him. He's primarily known for being a comedic actor, but he absolutely kills it in the Town That Dreaded Sundown sequel, reboot, reimagining thing. For the most part, these characters in this film are not memorable at all. There's a couple that stand out, you know, but by this time, we're starting to get a lot of bigger name actors in there. Hayden Panettiera's in this film. Rory Culkin, whatever, one of the Culkins, not Macaulay Culkin, is in this movie. It's fun, and it's grown on me over the years, because at first I was very anti-Scream 4, and as the years have gone by, I've started to appreciate it a little bit more. Doesn't mean it's great, just means it's fun, and I'm accepting it. So that's why it's my number 2 pick. So moving on to my number 1, which is a no-brainer, Scream. It's a Scream, baby! If you're new to the channel, then you don't really know how we at 3B Video feel about the first Scream. But if you're a longtime subscriber, you've kind of heard us go on our rants about this film and how, in our opinions, they sort of caught lightning in a bottle with this film. It is the resurgence of the horror film. It's responsible for kind of jump-starting the heart of horror once again and getting people interested in the genre, kind of creating this self-referential, fun, witty dialogue where characters are doing the tropes, but they're also well aware of the tropes. You have a great cast in this movie. The chemistry is just flawless. You have really inventive kills. You have a terrifying villain. No matter how many times I've seen the first Scream, every time I watch it, I find something else that I like about it just a little bit more. Sure, there are things that you can nitpick about it, but as a whole, this movie is almost a perfect film. It's scary when it wants to be scary. It's very funny when it wants to be funny. I feel like this film created horror fans. There are people running around now who saw this movie at a very early age, and it changed everything for them. I can imagine this being a gateway film for a lot of younger horror fans. And that's why I think that this movie is amazing, because it did change the game, and it did open up the doors for casual film fans to become horror fans and sort of shake up their whole world and turn them into Randy Meeks. I mean, I went to school with a number of them who became horror fans because of this film, and I'm sure that some of you did too. Maybe you are a horror fan because of the first Scream. So let me know in the comments how the Scream franchise impacted your life, how it turned you into a horror fan, some of the memories you have with seeing this movie. But I suppose I should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there. Somebody's got to watch them, so why not me, right?
Okay, so have I covered everything? Are there any questions, any comments? You know what though? Who gives a flying fuck anyway?